Afghanistan has become the biggest foreign policy miscalculation for Joe Biden since he took office. It is an embarrassment, a fiasco. See how quickly the Taliban gained control since Joe Biden announced a complete US troop withdrawal in April. In a war or a competition, you don't tell your opponent when you will quit. By doing that, you give up an advantage called deterrence, and in effect, you surrender. Biden did all that in a highly publicized television address, and since then he mistakenly believed that a Taliban takeover was not likely. This is Joe Biden just a month ago. Listen.
Is the Taliban takeover of Afghanistan now inevitable?
No, it is not. Because you have the Afghan troops have 300,000 well-equipped as any army in the world, and an air force against something like 75,000 Taliban.
Secondly, to pull out of Afghanistan so suddenly amid the worsening security situation is the epitome of American irresponsibility. Biden abandoned Afghanistan, pure and simple. Since taking office, Biden and the US security establishment has made China America's rival number one, and the rise of China its biggest national security threat. Yeah, China, a country that has never sent soldiers to American soil, is now a bigger existential risk than Iraq or Afghanistan. I get it. There cannot be a near-peer competitor to the US, a close rival that hails from a vastly different political or cultural system that's uniquely Asian. But when the US elites, the security establishment, sober up a bit, they should see that in Afghanistan, hundreds of civilians and security forces die each month as the Taliban clash with government forces. In total, over 100,000 Afghan civilians and soldiers have been killed or injured since the US invasion. Surrendering amid the current chaos creates an image of America being reckless, selfish, and unreliable. A perception that may linger for years, even decades to come. Ryan Crocker, former US ambassador to Afghanistan, said this: "We just have a lack of strategic patience as a nation and as a government. Sadly, in the region, our adversaries have come to count on us not staying the course." Plus, does might make right? The US is the strongest military on earth, we all know that, but does that entitle Washington to go around the world subverting regimes they don't like, propping up governments they consider friendly, exporting systems of government, and punishing countries or individuals for violating US laws and standards? Another lesson: peacemaking and peace building are two different things. The US toppled the Taliban government in a matter of months, but nation building proved to be much more complicated. It is about setting up rule of law institutions, education and schools, a civil society, infrastructure, and public services that enable growth. While at it, one must take into account Afghanistan's unique social, cultural, religious, and tribal fabrics. Apparently, the US failed to work inside Afghanistan's political and cultural dynamics. Prominent Afghans, such as scholar Omar Sadr, said the entire US process of state building was quote-unquote based not on local needs and circumstances, but on a model that was brought here from outside, a point echoed by many American officials.
Afghanistan, like most countries, doesn't want to see foreigners on their soil. And so for many Afghan men and women, the US being there was a problem. And that enabled the Taliban to easily paint the government as a government of puppets. And you'll know your own history as an Afghan as having defeated multiple different occupations. So this is something that's a part of identity. It's not something that can be easily removed.
From Vietnam to Libya, from Iraq to Afghanistan, a painful lesson is that US interventionism has its limits. And if this interventionism is mingled with a missionary fervor to convert and the ideological bias to proselytize, things could get a lot worse.